been a while since I uploaded, just over a month, and as you can see I've walked in on crutches. That is the main reason why I haven't been posting, but that's not what you're here for. You're here to see how I edit my Instagram photos. These are the photos you guys like the most, my top 3 photos. So I'm basically just going to go through my process on how I edit my Instagram photos, what little tips and tricks I have for you guys with editing Instagram photos, and what I like to do with certain types of photos. So hopefully you guys learn something from this video, and without further ado, let's start editing the first photo. So this is the first photo that we're going to be editing. I think it's pretty well exposed, and I think we can actually do quite a bit with this image. The first thing I always do with the photo is I make sure that I edit a good base, get everything looking how I want, and I do that all before I start changing colors and doing fancy effects and everything like that. So firstly, I'm going to increase the contrast to 33. Sometimes I'll have to change a certain setting multiple times to get it right, and I may even have to come back to a certain setting to correct it later on. The next thing I'm going to do is see with the highlights. I think I'm going to bring them down a bit just so I can get some more detail out in the sky. The shadows I'm going to lift a little bit as well so I can bring some details out in the shadows. The whites, let's see what we can do. I'm going to up them a little bit to 25, 26, and the blacks, I'm going to drop the blacks slightly. I like my photos to be quite sharp, so I'm going to increase the clarity just a little bit to about 12, and don't need to mess with dehaze and vibrance and saturation, so that's all good. Next thing I go to is the tone curve. If you've ever edited photos yourself, you'll definitely know of something called the S-curve. Now this is where you do the S-curve. So what I'm going to do on my photo here is I'm going to do a basic S-curve. I'm going to bring down the bottom part of it a little bit, and I'm going to finish the S by bringing up the top bit of the image. So now my image is reasonably well exposed. I don't particularly like the colors that are there, so I'm going to head over to the HSL tab so that we can fiddle around with some of the colors. Before I go to the HSL tab, I actually forgot I'm going to head down to camera calibration. I'm going to change the blues to a slightly more aqua color, because that is the color that I prefer the sky to be right now. So I've moved it down to about -19. These sliders can really make a difference. So if you want your greens to look more yellow, or if you want your reds to look more orange, you can do that right here. Then I'm going to go back to the HSL tab and start changing the colors. Okay, so I don't really want my lights to be yellow, so I'm going to take the yellow hue slider and bring it all the way towards orange. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to up the saturation slightly. And with luminance, I'm going to up it a little bit as well. Then I'm going to head over to the orange tab, and then I'm going to bring those, no, that's too much. And I'm going to bring these slightly more towards the orange side as well, making those yellow lights look just that little bit more orange. I'll increase the saturation slightly and bring down the luminance by about -2. Okay, so I don't really like the color of the headlights here, so I'm going to up the luminance of the reds and bring down the saturation slightly. So right now I think it's looking pretty good. The next color we have to adjust is definitely the blues to really make the sky pop, make the ground look a little bit more blue as well. So I'm going to start off with a blue here, and I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to bring it down a little bit to make the sky and ground a little bit more aqua. I'm going to bring up the saturation slightly, and not going to mess too much with the luminance. Then I'm going to head over to the aqua color. We'll bring that down a little bit towards more of the turquoise color, up the saturation a little bit as well, and again, nothing much with the luminance, just bring it down a little bit. So far the image is actually looking pretty good. I think we've got a really good almost final picture here. But the last thing I'm going to do, and this is a big tip, it's something that I always recommend instead of using a vignette, especially when you take photos that are low down to the ground, is I like to use a graduated filter instead of a vignette. I think it just looks a little bit better, so I'm going to drag one up from the floor in line with the curb on the road, and just extend that down a little bit here at the bottom, just to make it slightly different there. Then what I'm going to do for this graduated filter is I'm going to bring down the exposure a little bit so the road is quite dark at the bottom and gets brighter as it goes up, which helps draw attention to the main subject, which is the train and the person. I'm going to right click on that, duplicate it, drag the one up and rotate it so that it now does one for the sky as well. This one is not going to be as harsh because I don't need it to be. So I'm just going to drag it down. Let's get it like that. That looks pretty good. And then what I'll do on top of that is add a radial filter right in the center of the image, just to really bring out, just to really make the train and the person pop. I have no idea what's going on with those colors. So what I'm going to do for this mask is I'm going to invert it and increase the feather. And then I'm going to go up to the exposure over here and just increase it a little bit, just to really make it pop. And that's the edit on the first image. Here is the before, and here is the after. The next image we're going to be editing is this photo of a bike that I took against the wall in Amsterdam. So again, starting off with the basics, I'm going to up my contrast a little bit. I'm going to see what we can do with the highlights here. I'm going to up the highlights a tiny bit. And with the shadows, I'm going to bring down the shadows a little bit. Whites and blacks don't need much done to it. I'm going to lower the whites a tiny bit, and the blacks, I'm going to lower them a slight bit as well. I think straight out of camera it looks really, really good. It's an amazing sunset. The reflection looks really good. I got a nice low angle, and the shadow, and it doesn't seem to be too noisy in the on the mountain, and it seemed to get quite a good exposure between the highlights and the shadows. So I'm not going to fiddle too much with contrast, bring it up a little bit. I'm going to bring up my shadows a tiny bit just to get more detail in that mountain. Highlights I'm going to drop so we can really see the sky, get more detail. You can see here, if I have the highlights up there, you lose a lot of detail in that left corner, and I bring it all the way down and bam, you get these nice fiery orange clouds. Nothing much with whites and blacks. Can put the whites up a little bit and drop the blacks slightly, and I'm going to up the clarity slightly. Vibrance and saturation I might fiddle with later. S-curve is very important, so I'm going to drop it there slightly and increase it there slightly. Then we're going to go down to HSL. One color I don't want in this is that sort of purple color in the top. So I'm going to head over there and I'm going to make that more red and drop the saturation a little bit and drop the luminance. Purples as well, I don't really want purples in here. So I am going to bring it more towards that side, bring up the luminance a little bit. And now with the oranges, I want the oranges to really pop, so I'm going to bring the slightest bit of saturation into it. And I'm not going to fiddle with the luminance either. Nothing to do with the reds. No need for split toning really. I'm going to leave the image as it is right now. I think it looks pretty good. There's not much editing needed here. What we can do is maybe take a brush over here and just brush this mountain a little bit, just to bring out a little bit more detail in the mountain without changing anything else. I think that should be good. So here is the before and here is the after of the third and final photo. So I hope you learned something from today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me edit my 3 photos. Comment below which one you liked the most, which photo was your favorite, and which edit was your favorite. And I'll definitely be replying to all of your comments. If you guys have any video ideas that you'd like me to do, please let me know down below in the comments. And just a quick side note with the coronavirus, please guys stay safe, don't get sick. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.